To start off this video, I wanted to ask myself an important question. What is the point of creating? You know, during the pandemic, life took a crazy turn and I became quite the homebody. I'm sure many of you can relate. There's something so cozy and comforting about staying in your own little world, right? I knew exactly what to expect. But lately I started peeking out of my window and exploring my surroundings a bit more. I decided to finally step out of my room and a whole new world opened up to me. This newfound love has been my main inspiration lately, and you're probably wondering yourself why I'm introducing my drawing video like that. My art starts off with my inspiration. It is the start of the whole process. But don't worry, now I'm going to explain to you what brushes I use and how I create. I'm using my iPad Pro with the app Procreate on it, and now I'm just making like a very loose sketch just to get an idea. And I'm using the 6B pencil, which is part of Procreate. So Procreate has a lot of default brushes, which are very useful. There's only one brush which I frequently use and which is not part of Procreate, but I will tell you that in a bit. After that, I'm going to activate my drawing assist, which helps me with the perspectives. You can choose from a variety of different grids and perspectives. I chose 2 different vanishing points and I'm using it to help me with the house. It also helps me get a straight line and it makes your life a lot easier, so you don't really have to worry about perspectives. Now I'm just going to focus on the background. I have a reference picture behind my iPad on the laptop. It is very important to draw from real life references, and I chose a hiking trail here in Austria. I try to incorporate my own culture into my artwork, and having real life references has really helped me improve my art, especially with my fear of backgrounds. When I do my line art, I use a brush which is from a free brush package. I think it's called Grain Pencil Heavy Channel, and it is part of like a traditional pencil-like brush package. I will link it down below. And as you can see, this brush is similar to the 6B pencil, but it is softer and it has rounder edges, which I think suits my style more than the 6B pencil. I feel like the 6B pencil does a really good job when it comes to looking like a traditional pencil. However, it is too sharp for my liking, so I only use it for my sketches. And when I do the line art for my characters, I try to make the lines a little bit more thicker than their surrounding, so that they stand out more than their environment, because the environment is in the background and I want the subject to be the first thing that you look at when you look at my art. After the line art, I'm going to focus on colors and which colors to choose and which colors go with each other. For this, I have created my own color palette. I normally change my color palette up every month, so currently this one is a little bit older. As you can see, I'm trying to include a blue shade into my color palette because I have been into bluish and greenish tones more lately. And my biggest advice for you is to experiment with different colors. There are a lot of different websites which can randomly create a color palette for you. And if you want to have more control over it, you can just go into Pinterest and choose a color palette you like and maybe do a sketchbook spread for that color palette or an artwork. You can only find out your color preferences by trying out those different color palettes yourself. I can't tell you which colors are going to be the best one for your art style and which colors you feel comfortable with. For example, I don't really like purple, so I don't put purple into my art style. I have also come a very long way. At the beginning I thought, okay, I would just use a lot of low saturated colors and everything will look cohesive, but now I have understood that which colors suit my style and which colors I love to use. At the moment, my main colors are green tones and blue tones because I feel like they are very relaxing, they calm the viewer, and they suit my art style at the moment. It is also very important to know the basics of color theory, so the color wheel and the primary colors, which colors go with each other, and which colors are of course complementary colors. For me personally, I have learned the most about color theory when I painted traditionally. It is definitely very helpful to see these colors on a traditional canvas. I've only drawn mountains a handful of times, and lately I've been trying to add a lot more textures to the mountains, therefore I am using a multiply layer, and with the select tool, which is like the third button on the left corner, I am just selecting an area I want to color, and then I also chose the Gouache paint from Procreate. And with this brush you can like create a lot of nice textures, and the select tool makes the edges very sharp, so therefore I can make the surface look very rough. I don't really use them anywhere else in my art. Like I said before, even with line art I try to use as many round shapes as possible. So for shading, I like to use a lot of warm tones. Normally I use very warm tones for my main characters, and for the environment like the mountains or the grass I will choose a more cool toned color. I am a very big fan of this sun-kissed look at the moment. You have to be cautious and know what effect you want to achieve. If your scenery is set in the winter time, then your shadows are going to be more cool toned, and as well if you are drawing something from nighttime, then it's going to be a very dark blue or even a purplish shade. And if you want to know which pencil I use specifically for creating shading and shadows, I will switch between the flat brush and the dry ink brush. If I want one surface to have like the same opacity, I will use the dry ink brush because it creates a little bit texture, but it has the same opacity. It doesn't change depending on how much pressure you put onto your pen. Shading is a great way to add dimension to your artwork. For example, when I use different types of green for the grass, it shows that there is some grass which is affected by the shadow and the other one is more in the front, so it creates more dimension to my piece. The first advice I got from my art teacher when I was 14 was to make my items overlay with each other, because this creates dimension and your art will look more professional. If you draw an apple and a vase and you don't put the apple in front of the vase, it will look more flat than if you put the apple in front of the vase. I hope this makes sense. Something else that I really like at the moment is using the dry ink brush but with a lower opacity. The dry ink brush is a little bit too sharp for my liking, so when I lower the opacity it mixes with the colors underneath and it creates, for example, a soft blush. I also like this technique for adding highlights. I always add a few lighter strokes in the background or the foreground, and lately I've also been adding like some random small dots. I feel like it creates a magical vibe, and it's something I really like for my art style at the moment, because I am drawing nature and then I'm kind of imagining nature as like this fairyland. When I have colored everything and added all the shading and the details, I will change my line art color. I am not the biggest fan of a black or a dark brown line art. And what I normally do is I select my line art layer and then I create another layer above it. So here I am selected the line art layer where I drew my characters, and I created another layer above it, and then I filled this one with an orange shade so that it creates a warmer line art. And I also changed the color of my line art layer depending on the object. So the mountains, I made the line art a little bit more bluish, and for the grass I made it more greenish. And that's everything I do for my line art. I hope this video helped you, and if you have any questions, feel free to write me on Instagram. You can always DM me. I have already answered some of your questions in my DMs. I am studying to become an art teacher, so this is a really good opportunity for me to just help other people and get better at teaching art, for example. So yeah, feel free to write me. I hope you enjoyed this video.